الله الله يا رب الإله ويا رب الإله سيدي رسول الله.
Alhamdulillah, we were able to have completed our series for the Ramadan, which was on the levels of faith. Now going forward to our next Sunday series, inshallah, it will be a discussion on the book of Shaykh Ah al Alāwī in defense of the doctrine of Sufism. And the name of the book is A Kind Word in response to those who reject Sufism. The Arabic is al-Risālah al-Qawl fi al-Radd ala man Ankara al-Tasawwuf. And of course, I will just give a few briefings here just to give some idea of what the discussion will be about. It will be on the book specifically that I've mentioned. And my purpose for having chosen this specific topic is because of my acquaintance with the works of Shaykh al-Alawi and the vast standing of his spiritual status and his profound knowledge and authority on the exoteric and esoteric sciences, which is of course compared to shari'ah and haqiqa. And I also saw the inherent need for a work of this nature to be presented, especially to the Western world out there of English readership, despite the fact that there are other works that also speaks of defense in Sufism. This work in itself is unique because of its profound three-dimensional approach to the topic of Tasawwuf. That is using the Qur'an and the Hadith. In addition to it, the methodology of Ijtihad, which brings out the depth of the Shaykh's argument. And Ijtihad is also the main instrument, as we know, for interpreting the divine message of the Qur'an, the text of the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and it is also the fundamental principle that features next to the Qur'an and Sunnah. And so the book for which I have provided the first English translation as part of my MA thesis was written in defense of the Sufis and of course of the doctrine of Tasawwuf. A brief introduction to the life and personality of the Shaykh al-Alawi is that his full name is Ahmad bin Muṣṭafā bin Aliwa Abu al-Abbas al-Alawi. He was born in Mustaghanim in Algeria in 1869. The Shaykh, of course, had two sisters before his birth. His mother dreamt that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ handed her a flower, and the Shaykh's father saw this as a sign that they would have a pious son. The Shaykh al-Alawi never went to school, but he learned the Qur'an from his father, memorizing most of it, and his father died when he was 16. The Shaykh al-Alawi was a Sufi and a Maliki scholar, and also a jurist, a faqih, and a mufassir, an exegete, Quranic exegete, and a poet, a sha'ir. He was also the Shaykh and the renewer of the Shadili Darqawi Tariqa, from which he founded the Alawi order that bears his name, of course. And the French Orientalist Emily Birmingham characterized the Shaykh al-Alawi as one of the most celebrated mystic shaykhs of our time. So yes, of course, the legacy of Shaykh al-Alawi is both spiritual and also literary in nature, because with regards to the first, which is spiritual, his name occurs in the silsila of the Shadiliya order, and this affirms his mastery of the path. But from the Sufi viewpoint, this spiritual legacy of Shaykh al-Alawi was his supreme contribution, for he had realized within himself the truths that was taught to him by his own master, and the Shaykh al-Alawi's teachings can then also be defined, as I've said, both as traditional and also esoteric. The Shaykh's main purpose was to clarify Sufism or Tasawwuf for those who blindly oppose it without knowing the reality of its principles. So he makes clear in this work the errors which may have appeared from some pseudo-Sufis, and he addresses these issues with profound intellectual arguments from the aspect of the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and of course Ijtihad, reminding us that blind opposition and blind following is a problem that exists with every school of thought and doctrine. So what has intrigued me most about this book is the Shaykh's explanation of the principles of Sufism and its origin within the context of the Qur'an and of the Sunnah. And one of the main purposes of this refutation is also to clarify Sufism for those who blindly oppose it without knowing its reality and its principles. So to end off, I would just like to give you some idea of the content that we will be doing, and to mention but a few topics here which I have just selected from the 5 chapters in the thesis. One of it, of course, would be the literary works in defense of Sufis, and also Sufism, Tasawwuf in the first generations. And then there is the topic that touches on especially the principles of innovation of bid'ah, and Shaykh Al Alawi's methodology in defense of of this doctrine, which is his application of Ijtihad. And then he speaks, of course, also on the 4 Imams and their view on Sufism, on Tasawwuf, and so forth. So, yeah, this is what we hope to bring forward, inshallah, in our next series. This is just kind of a summary of what I had given, of what we can expect, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. So you can join us, inshallah, from the Sunday that's coming, when we will be doing a reading from the letter of a kind word, inshallah. Shukran.